Hello folks, it's me, RH131, and we're back again with World of Tanks Blitz. Today we are going to be playing in the Tier 10 German medium tank, the E50M, the other Tier 10 German Med. This one is almost a polar opposite of the Leopard. Now the guns perform around the same except for the rate of fire, but it really is a polar opposite of the Leopard, and it's also a real polar opposite about most medium tanks in the game. Now, the E50M is very well known for its armor. It's probably one of the most all-around, the most well-armored medium tank in the game for its tier, except for perhaps the Matilda at tier 4 is a very well-armored medium tank. But for tier 10, the E50M probably has the most all-around armor. Now, it doesn't have the turret. Does not perform better than the Russian turrets of the ones on the Object 140 or the T62, but it does have better hull armor than them. And the turret is actually a subject of why we're making another E50M guide, as opposed to the old one I did. And that is because the turret received a buff. Now has 250 millimeters of frontal turret armor, as opposed to 185. Now, this is a pretty substantial buff. It now allows the E50M to have some of the same hull-down characteristics as almost on par of that with Russian tanks. Not anywhere near that, however, but it certainly performs better hull-down than it's used to. You can now have, I would rank the E50M's turret third out of the Tier 10 mediums. I would put the T62As and the M48 Pattons above the E50Ms in terms of how much armor and how easy it is to bounce things. The STB and Leopard turrets are pretty paper, and I rate it above the Object 140's turret because the cupola on the E50M is a lot harder to hit than the cupolas on the Object 140. And the main tactic of the E50M that you're still going to be using a lot, however, is side scraping. And as you see here, there's an IS-4 spotted over there, so we're going to back up. He spotted us, we're going to back up, corner around here, find the corner, there it is, and park and start firing into him. Now, the E50M is a very good tank at side scraping if you do it correctly. You only have 80 millimeters of side armor, so you can't expose your side a lot. What I'm doing here is probably one of about as extreme of an angle as you can get with the side scraping, or else the rounds are going to go through. And the other downside is the 80 millimeters will get overmatched if enemies use heat on you. If you're trying to side scrape against someone that's using heat, you want to show the bare minimum of your side, as little of it as possible, and it will bounce. Alternatively, you could try to get them to bait into shooting into your tracks, because heat will get absorbed in the tracks to this thing pretty easily, and it will not do a lot of damage if you get it in your tracks. Should be able to take off all the damage from the round. Now, you've managed to kill the IS-4, and you're going to see me make a tiny mistake here, and that was I wasn't quite sure what was out there, and it was an E75, and he was able to put one into my side, like I said, 80 millimeters, very thin. Now, I aim up and try to get a shot on him there, and it goes just a tiny bit low and hits the boxes in front of him. I would normally not take that shot against an E75, but if you looked at his hit points, he only had 1700. That means he was using the stock turret from the Tiger II. And that was the same armor layout as the old E50 turret, but now it is around the same layout as a hybrid of that and the E75, because E75 has 252 millimeters at the front of its turret, and the E50, however, still has the side 80 millimeters. That's also a very important note. If you're fighting this tank, the sides of the front of the turret, not the way the turret's designed, it's sort of a trapezoid with two sloped plates going back from it. The trapezoid is the only part that has the 250 millimeters, the trapezoid that's around the gun manlet. The two side portions of it that are coming out from it still have 80 millimeters of armor. And you can overmatch them with heat at certain angles, and you can, if you're in a 4-2 or a Death Star, you can hesh through those if it's presented flat to you. Now, as you see here, we're getting some flanking fire on these two medium tanks that are in the cap area, and I see that my team is going to be able to handle them, so I'm going to go out and look for the IS-8 and the E3, which were last spotted around the body of that Death Star and the rock up there. Now, the E50M is, for mobility standards, it falls in line with probably one of the lowest ranked tier 10 mediums in terms of mobility. But if you classify it as a heavy, it's got the best mobility, and that's really what you want to classify the E50M as. It's not a medium tank per se, it's a heavy. It's a medium heavy tank, and I don't think we have an acronym for that yet. There is an acronym for heavy tanks that perform like mediums, it's a heavium, but there really isn't an acronym for medium tanks that perform well as heavies, just because there's so few in the game that actually do it. Now, we're going to finish this game off. There's this E50M here that I'm fighting that bounces off me, and I'm going to aim. You see there, the trapezoid of the turret, that's 250 millimeters, and I try to put one in, but it bounces off. It was a weak chance to go through, but I wasn't going to load gold round. Too expensive to fire at the end of the game like that for just a measly 300 damage. But nonetheless, we still finished that game off pretty well. We were able to carry pretty decently. We finished with 3,500 damage, which is nice. We also completed a mission, which is nice. And pretty decent gun performance that game. 16 shots, 12 hits, 10 penetrations. That's really what the tank is about. You want to use your armor and your gun. The gun on this thing is where it's different from a lot of the tanks of its tier. The 105 on this tank was at one point the most accurate gun of the game. That is now tied with the Grill 15 for the most accurate gun in the game. But this 105 is nonetheless an extremely accurate gun. And you want to use that accuracy combined with the armor. If you can keep the distance on your opponents when you're fighting in this tank, you're going to be on top in most engagements. The farther away you are from the enemy with this tank, the armor excels at range, because it's harder for enemies to hit your weak spots, and if they're using gold rounds, you've got a larger amount of time to block it. And as you see there, we were driving by, managed to bounce a shot from that Type 61. Always important when you're driving in this tank not to show a large amount of your side armor to where you think enemies will be. You want to try to anticipate where the enemies are going to be positioning themselves at, and you want to point your armor in an angle towards them. Now we're off to a good start this game. We've already put in a couple shots, hit that 140 once, hit one in the Conqueror, and I get a little bit nervous here. I see the red line on the map, but no, that Type 61's on the other side of that rock, so we're fine with that. Now, this 140 that I'm across with here, I make a little bit of a mistake. I was trying to get a shot into the Jagdpanzer somehow, and I wasn't paying attention. He pokes out. He puts one most likely into my turret side. Like I said, the 80 millimeters of the side is still there, so that's an easy penetration if you get the side of an E50's turret. Now, this Jagdpanzer's had enough of his position. He's going up, trying to drive off, so we put a parting shot into him. I popped my adrenaline thinking I could get a shot into that 140, but that was a bad mistake on my part, because that's going to be a waste of the adrenaline now, because all of those medium tanks are now on the other side of that rock and they're not coming out, except, oh wait, yes they are. Now, I don't know what possessed this 140 to rush here. I'm not sure if he thought he was getting back up immediately. I mean, it doesn't help because my vertical stabilizers don't seem to want to hit this guy while he's on the move, but he rushes, and initially, it looks like a good idea, because now his teammates, however, are very slow to follow him, and were able to intercept that 140 and knock him out. He did not have a lot of health left. And now this 140's trapped himself in a corner of the map. He's got really no support from his team, and I'm here, and now I've got my 140 with me. And this is one of the only times when you want to engage an enemy medium tank in a close 1v1 situation like this. I've got backup, and I've got the health advantage. And despite the fact that that round bounced for no reason, I still have the health advantage on him, so I'm going to be able to reload despite the fact that the E50M does not have the best DPM, and finish him off. The E50M's DPM is its core weak point as a medium tank. Every other medium tank in the game features a really nice DPM. The E50M does not because of its armor. However, that doesn't mean it's a bad tank. It's probably one of the best medium tanks per se at tier 10. It's definitely better than the 4202. I rank it better than the T62A in terms of all-around performance, and I also rank it above the Patton in that it can bounce shots off its hull more easily than you can in a Patton. Though I don't have a Patton, so maybe I'm just speaking from my own bias towards it. Now we're going to finish this game off with a ram there. That's a nice thing to do when you're in E50. If you see an enemy on low health, you can obviously use your speed combined with your weight to ram a tank. And the weight is really nice with this tank. It weighs 62 tons, which for a medium tank, that's really heavy. None of the other tier 10 mediums have that kind of weight. So if you ram a medium tank going like top speed of around 30 to 40 kilometers an hour, you're going to shave off a large amount of their health. Now, you're going to take a bit of damage in return, but it's nothing like that what they're going to take. Now, I've got one more replay, and this one isn't focusing on per se what I do in the replay, but it's focusing on sort of teamwork that you can accomplish if you actually have competent people playing with you. Now, combined with side scraping the E50M, hull down is now a much better option than it used to be because your turret is more armored. However, you still want to be mindful that your turret is going to be penetrated with gold rounds and that it's going to be penetrated if the enemy get the slightest portion of your side because of the 80 millimeters there. Combined with the mobility of the tank, the mobility is fairly decent. I mean, it's really good for the armor that this tank boasts. And it's nothing on par with that of the Leopard. If you want a mobile tier 10 medium tank, you get the Leopard. But it's definitely, I would say, better than the Leopard in the fact that it can take hits. The E50M is really the medium tank that you want to get out and take hits for your other medium tanks that are on your team, because you can bounce the shot while they might not be able to. And you're going to be seeing me do that here. Now, there's two medium tanks spotted. There's an M60 and a 140 up there. And now there's also a Leopard 1. And I see my E1 is backing off, so I take the corner over from him, and I side scrape, able to bounce the shot from the M60. And what you can see here, the E1 doing, as I'm angling my armor up, and now there's T30 as well. What I'm doing right now is I'm letting them fire their guns off, and I'm just going to wait, and once I believe now the E1 is reloading, I'm going to pull out. I'm going to attempt to take the kill on this Patton. He's backing up a little bit. We got him. And here comes a Leopard out. I'm going to take the hit again for my teammates, bounce it. That was a heat round, and we're going to get one into him. And this type of tactic, what you're seeing me doing here, is actually a really good thing to do. To take hits for your teammates, because that's what you can do with E50M's armor. I was able to save the E1 and the T30 a large amount of hit points there, because I was taking the hits that they could have been taking. Now, I bounce a heat round off my track. That's why you don't fire heat into tracks. And we're able to put one into that 140. T30 finishes him off. This is a really fast game. Pretty good result. 7-0 win, so steamroll. So now it's just about farming damage at the end, and we're going to get one into this Conqueror. Vertical stabilizers for the win. This is another tank, like I said in the Leopard replay, the Leopard's really good on firing on the move. This is another tank very good at firing on the move. Just look at the, I'm going really, what am I doing right now, around 30-ish, and it's just a smooth platform for firing on the move. If you hit a bump, it'll bump a little bit, but as for going on flat ground, very smooth platform for firing on the move. And so that's going to do it for that game. Managed to finish 2,000 damage, not that bad. Very good teamwork in that game, and that's really what the E50M excels at. Excels as a support role. You can take hits for your team, especially tier 10 mediums. If you're going with your tier 10 mediums and you get into a spot where you're coming under fire, get into a position where you can take hits for your teammates, because you have a much better chance of bouncing it than something as such a Leopard or even a 140. If the hull is exposed, the 140's hull is very bad. You can at least bounce stuff off your hull. So you really want to try and take hits for your medium tanks. In a similar way to how the IS-8 performs as being the heavy medium tank, you want to be the medium heavy tank. You want to take the hits for your medium tanks so that you can push a flank, that you can get behind enemy lines and use your gun. And while the E50M's DPM is the worst of the tier 10 mediums, that's only because of the tier 10 mediums. You still have a better DPM than most of the heavy tanks and all of the tank destroyers. And you really want to use your mobility to get into a position where you can use your armor and you can use your gun to focus down tanks on the enemy team, one at a time, and wipe them out. Now, this may be speaking because I'm slightly biased towards the E50M, and that's because out of the games I've played in Blitz, I've had 3 games that have been over 7,000 damage. One of them was in the Jagdpanzer 100, and 2 of them were in the E50M. And the highest damage game I ever recorded in Blitz was 7,800 damage, and it was won off a 1v5 Kolobanovs in my E50M. And I will post some of the images I have from that when I saved it. I didn't record that game, but I remember it very well. And the E50M is a tank that you can definitely carry in, and you can definitely do well in once you learn how to use it. And once you master the E50M, you are really good when it comes to mastering other medium tanks. Because the E50M is probably one of the hardest tanks to master, but once you do master it, you're set. And that's really the emphasis of this guide, and that's really the point that I was making today. That's going to be all for this video, and I will see you guys next time.